Okay, hello, good morning. A little bit late today. We had a slow morning. It's really nice because we lived like on second floor in this apartment, rather small apartment, especially when you have a kid. And now we moved to a different place, so like it's not like we're on first floor or it's like a row house thingy. I don't know what you call it in English, but it's like there's a garden and stuff. Super nice. And then, as I mentioned, like my bike got stolen, which was not very nice. And then yesterday, when I said I had been out having a few beers, I borrowed my girlfriend's bike, and I managed to break it on my way home. Yeah, it took a bit of time this morning. Anyways, I thought we could continue on our app. By the way, we talked about hot reloading in Code Sandbox, and it's really interesting because Code Sandbox has this amazing ability to just gives you hot reloading out of the box, and it even has instant hot reloading. So, for example, if I were to let me show you this. Okay. Let me show you this preview. So we'll do this one and instant preview. So the point is that as I'm typing, I don't know if we can, oh yeah, it probably doesn't work here. Let's see. Do we have some text here? Hello world. Yeah, as you can see, instantly when I'm typing, you see that the app rebundles. And this is because it's tied into React Refresh or whatever it's called. But it's a pretty epic experience. The problem with this hot reloading though is that it doesn't work very well for building logic and stuff. But it works really well for static content, like text content and styling and stuff. But currently you have to go like into the preferences and you have to toggle it there. Yes, and then you have preview on edit, which then when you type, it waits for a couple, 200 milliseconds or something, and then it will hot reload. And then what we actually noticed, there was a regression that's been there for a long time, which is really embarrassing. So yesterday I was trying to change some code, and then I was surprised that I had to refresh, or it actually did a refresh. Let's see if we can get this to work again. So when I changed the page here, on the add backlog item, I kind of wanted to change this stuff around, but it refreshed. But that was actually a regression. So as you can see now, I can work just fine on my code here. And yeah, so the point is we actually fixed something. But my point explaining this is that this is pretty epic stuff that we can kind of get this to work without you having to set up anything. And it kind of just becomes part of your workflow. The problem is that these different modes, like instant mode, as I said, fits with styling, while doing like just hot reloading when you save fits better with writing logic and stuff. And sometimes you actually do want the preview to refresh because you might have written some kind of side effect. So what we're working on is making that like super fluent so that you don't even think about it. The editor just knows that, for example, if you open a CSS file, it would automatically go into instant mode because it knows that when you're in a CSS file, it can safely just, as you type, it can rebundle. And then if you move into a TSX or JSX file, it will go into hot reload mode when you save, because it knows that it can hot reload when you save. But if you were to go into some other kind of file, you're probably writing a side effect. So when you save that file, it will do a refresh. So you don't have to actually think about that. At least that's the goal. And we are currently working on that. And I'm personally super excited about it. Because I don't think, for example, if I were to change this stuff. Oh yeah, awesome. Yeah, as you can see, it does the hot reloading here as well, which is super awesome. Okay, but this is for everyone now. So we deployed this yesterday. So now when you work on your React components and you have turned off instant preview, you still have hot reloading, which is like, oh, I can't believe for so long that we had that regression and we didn't know about it. And it's such an implicit part of the core experience that you kind of don't notice it. You have to really focus on how does this actually feel. And that's kind of like my thing doing all this open source is really thinking about the second to second or at least minute to minute experience developing something. When do you get stuck? When do you get frustrated? When does it feel off? And that is as much an API thing when you build a tool as like when you actually build an application, like a productivity application like Code Sandbox. Okay, anyways, cool. So what we're going to do today is to build a UI here. I don't think we have time to do anything else. I'm building that UI. But I started thinking about something that's kind of tricky about Firebase. So when we actually add our backlog item, we don't really have a way to know when it has been added. Like typically when you add something, you want to give the user a notification about, okay, it's now added. But with Firebase, this logic is completely decoupled, I think. Well, it is. Because what happens is that, let's look at actions here. So what we would do is we would call add backlog item, right? But the item will be added here on backlog update. It's completely decoupled. So we have to find a way to, okay, so you add this backlog item and then we want to give the notification when this new backlog item is actually received back into the client. And I have some thoughts on, to do that. And yeah, let's start with the UI first. Let's see. Yeah, I got a question if I'm using Xstate with React. No, we're using Overmind here, but Overmind has like concepts of state charts and also state machines, which is heavily inspired by David, the creator of Xstate. Like he's like a missionary. He just goes around the world talking about state machines and state charts and stuff. So personally, I'm trying to find a good way to make it very useful based on my experience and how I think about application development. Because there are parts of state charts that doesn't like resonate with me, that feels difficult. Like someone said, which fits very well with me, state charts, it makes total sense if you want to do a very small thing, like you have some complex interaction, or at the high level where you want to say what page you're on or something. But you have all this logic in between. And if you first start with a state chart at the top, it becomes insanely complex if that's going to define your whole application. So you kind of have to choose in between parts, typically at the higher or lower level. But I want something that kind of works in between. Yeah, so this is, and we're doing that in this application. We're exploring how we can use state machines as a concept wherever it makes sense in Overmind. But we're going to talk much more about that as well. Cool. So anyways, add backlog item. We have our button at the top, and now we need our text area, I guess, and we need to put this into some sort of okay, so we have our screen container, our button is floating up there, so it will stay there, I guess. And if I write something here, where does this pop up? Yeah, in the center. Oh, it's so nice, the hot reloading on save, it's back. It's awesome. Oh, I can't believe, I just can't believe that this has been a regression for so long. It's crazy. Anyways, okay, let's just add the text area first. And I think we do it like this in React. Cool. Yes, and we don't, I guess we want some styling on this. So let's call it text area. And we don't, I never remember this. There's this CSS property that removes the resizing. I don't like that. CSS resize. Like I remember the value is resize, but I never remember the, oh, I thought the value was resize. Yeah, it's resize none. Oh, I should have, okay. I'll store that in my brain. So resize. I could actually, I have TypeScript here. I could just have searched for it. Okay. Yes, we have our text area, styles, text area. Cool. Oh, this is, I'm super happy about this. Let's see. It should be a bit bigger. How big should it be? Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, so we have some preset sizes here. Let's see if any of them fit. We're just going up to 4. Let's see. Did we do, sorry, up to 3. Let's add some more here. So 4 would be 4 rem, 5 would be 5 rem. And yeah, sorry, I'm still using rems here. We had this talk about using pixels and rems and stuff. I don't have, like I have to kind of scope this this stream to some concepts, and it's mainly about state management and also testing out stitches. So I just have to lean on what I'm kind of used to in terms of styling, so that I don't go way out of scope and will never get it done. But let's see here if I, yeah, because now I actually have to, yeah, this is interesting, right? Because now I were on a normal TS file, and as you can see, it doesn't update. It didn't get 4 and 5 in here in terms of hot reloading. So with the suggestion we're currently working on, since I was in a TS file, it would actually refresh the app, which would actually be the right thing to do here, because it's not able to hot reload that back into React, and that wouldn't work locally either, which is super interesting. Okay, so that's kind of a validation of the idea. So let me just refresh now, because we need, so basically when I update my tokens, I have to do an actual refresh to get that in. And this is the tricky thing about hot reloading. Yeah, and maybe we can get around that. So instead of doing like a refresh, maybe we would go in and we would rerun the main file. Because if you rerun the main file, the main entry, it would actually render the app again, and it should have picked up the changes. Let me note this. Oh, this is really, really good that we get into some okay, I have to just continue. Instead of reload, do hot reload of entry when not able to actually hot reload. Cool. Yes, that would be amazing. Anyways, we're back here, and as you can see now, the styling is actually working. So yeah, sorry, I'm going a little bit back and forth on like internals of Code Sandbox and internals of our actual app and internals of Overmind and internals of Stitches. So I hope I'm able to bring you along on this. But okay, we have a text area here now, and let's just keep it like that for now. But how do we actually update the value of this? Typically with React, you would go in and you would have some local state to manage that value. But I'm going to put this value into Overmind instead. And with Overmind, you don't have to worry about re-renders and stuff, because Overmind tracks automatically what state you're using. So it's explicit, not explicit, but it's pinpointing the exact state you're actually using inside the component, and then renders based on that. So let's go and grab some state. Use, did I call it? Use app state. Use app state. Yes. And what we're going to do is maybe we should introduce like a new namespace for this. It might be a little bit overkill, but still we do have quite a bit of stuff here already. So I think actually we can do that. We already have like an auth namespace. So that's also a question, like how conceptually, how do you divide between namespaces? So, and this is also how do you organize your app? Do you do it by feature? Do you do it by like type of data? So we would have like our backlog items in like a data namespace, and then we would have a UI namespace and so on. Yeah, so it's the same with namespace. I typically do it kind of by feature. I don't have like a very explicit way, it's just the way it feels. So now we're kind of like on a specific part. Yeah, I guess it's mostly by feature. Yeah, and just thinking like in Code Sandbox as well, we do it by feature. Yeah, by feature. Cool. Yeah, Overmind got a question, explanation for the name. It was actually the first state management project I worked on is called Cerebral.js, and Cerebral, the name Cerebral was related to that. Cerebral helps you build a mental image of your app through the dev tool. It's like a dev tool driven tool. So the API was adjusted to being able to extract as much information as possible from the execution and the state management and stuff to visualize it for you. So that's why it was called Cerebral. And then Overmind was actually a working title. And it's kind of funny because the first person who became a core contributor of Cerebral.js moved and got another job and didn't have time to do that much open source. But it did suggest Overmind as a name for like the name for the new state management library. Alexei is his name. And yeah, it's actually from StarCraft, I think. Yeah, it's from StarCraft. And it was intended as a working title because it's a little bit lame. But then we started using it in the documentation and stuff, and I never got around to actually naming it. So that's the story of that. Yeah, okay, so we have a root namespace, we have auth, and then we're going to add, what should we call it? Yeah, what should we call it? Well, add, oh man, naming stuff. It's kind of like add and edit. Okay, let's just call it backlog item for now. Backlog item. Yeah, let's just call it backlog item, and we can change it later. Cool, because we also have like our backlog is now on the root. So maybe we should actually maybe we should have a namespace of backlog. Well, everything is backlog items really. Yeah, well, this is working on a single backlog item. Let's keep it like this for now. And then I guess I'll get some comments on organizing and stuff, and then we can kind of iterate on this based on feedback. So I just give like a quick suggestion, and then we can change it iterating on the feedback. Okay, it needs some state. I'm not quite sure what's going to be here yet. We're not going, yeah, maybe since we're diving into these state machines, maybe we should make a state machine out of this as well, because it does have some states. It has like, well, basically an empty state or invalid state, if you want to call it that. Yeah, so you have to kind of, well, you have to have some text here. That's for sure, before you can submit it. But you don't have to choose a date, and you don't have to choose a weekday to actually store it. So maybe it's definitely overkill to have like a state machine running here. but at least we have two different states. And we can only run the submit in one of the states. So we'll do that. Okay. So we have what should we call it? Oh my god, I'm really bad at coming up with names today. State. Invalid, valid. Let's see, we at least need two of these. So either it's come on. Yeah, it's valid or it's invalid. Okay, let's try that. And when it's valid, we should be able to submit it. No matter what we have here, we have some base state. And the base state is the description of the thing. So both of these has the base state. Oh, let's see. And then we'll say state machine of state. And we grab the state. Oh, I didn't pick it up. Import state machine from Overmind. So we have our invalid state. We can go to a valid state. Oops. We can go to valid, and when we are in our valid state, we can go to the invalid state. Cool. And then the initial state is of course invalid. And then we are going to have a description which is empty. Cool. And then let's see here. And we do need some other stuff as well, I guess. Well, I think we're going to... Yes. So we are going to actually... Yeah, let's just start with this one. And then we'll continue. I just lost my... Oh, great. I'm back. Let's see. Oh, what happened here? Yeah, we're back. Sorry about that. My internet just completely dropped. Whoa. Cool. Yeah. So I was talking about the state machines. Yeah, so the typing of the state machines is heavily inspired by XState, because I wasn't aware of the ability to actually give you the correct typing based on the current state, which I think is super powerful. So that is heavily inspired from XState. But the concept of a state machine is basically XState has its implementation of a state machine and we have ours. But conceptually they do the same thing. Okay, so we are going to first of all add import state from the state, and we are going to export that state, and then we refresh. That's good. And now we should have our state backlog item description. Cool. That's nice. And then we actually want to change it. So we need to expose an action as well. Ooh, is this new? Nice. So we're going to change description. That's going to be an action that takes a string. And we import action type. Then we're just going to attach, so we get the actions from actions, just so we get the, let's see, get the typing here. Oh, what happened there? Cool. So what we're going to do is change description we'll get the description in here. I'm going to say state backlog item description equals description. Cool. So let's see now. Let's test this thing. Do I have the... No, I just restarted my computer. Let's see. npx overmind devtools. Let's run the next. Okay, so we'll just start this up and then we'll see if it works. And then I think we're good for today. Yeah, and while that fires up, we are going to... Oh, it's already there. And I have to refresh to connect. Okay, cool. Let's move in here and let's try to update. Oh, maybe we should add on change first. That would be nice. So on change actions, backlog item, change description, and we're going to use, of course, the event target value to do that. And yeah, we might have to refresh to get that running. That's interesting though. Why did I have to refresh to get that running? Okay, cool. Hey, hello. I'm just going to note that adding event handler requires refresh. That's a code sandbox thing. But anyways, we are typing text there. We can see that we are getting our actions in here and it's updating the correct state. So that's super awesome. Now, the question is, why did I do this through Overmind instead of doing it in the component? And this is why. If I go back and in again, it's still there. And this is the thing with React, is that by default, it doesn't preserve any state when the component unmounts, the state is gone. So it doesn't preserve state. And typically, I find myself wanting to preserve state more often than not. I'm not worried about like polluting my state store with unnecessary state, like that's a memory issue or something. For me, that's kind of silly, because one thing is downloading a lot of data, like you have a lot of entities. That's something you might need to control if there's a lot of it. But when it comes to these kinds of UI states and stuff, just preserve it, because it gives a better user experience. Things don't get lost by default. They are persisted by default. And it also allows me to empty this description whenever I want. I don't even have to be on this page to empty the description if I want to do that for some reason. Stuff like that. Yes, cool. We don't get very far in half an hour, but we do talk about a lot of different things. So the main purpose, like if the only purpose here were to build this app, it would have we would have moved a lot faster. But the point is not really about the app. It's really talking about state management, finding like frictions in the experience of Code Sandbox so that we can fix those. Also exploring the state machines to see if we have a good API that can be used with Overmind, stuff like that. I kind of repeat myself on this. But yeah, I guess that's it for now. Next time we are going to actually create a UI component. Yeah, because we don't really use this one. Maybe we should delete it. We are going to actually create a UI component, because we have a component that's not only about styling. We have a component that is going to show all the weekdays, and then you're going to be able to select one of them. So it's kind of like our own input, and that fits nicely as a UI component. I did think about, so currently our strategy is to define like styles like this, and we could define them as UI components instead, but the thing is that then they become actual components, which is kind of unnecessary. But at the same time, I started thinking about this. What's nice if a container is just like a div, and the only thing it does is that it has some styling, and then you can have some children in it, is that if you have UI components as the next developer, I would argue that you would typically understand that, okay, I can go to UI components and see kind of like the finished pieces of what I can use here. But if you have like these general styles, it's much more difficult to understand like what you can use them for and how to compose them together and stuff. It's more low level. That's my point. It's low level, and it's arguably more difficult to understand how and where to use them. But if they are wrapped in a component, you go to a higher abstraction, and it's more explicit exactly how to use them. At least that's the theory. So we might, when we start using UI components, maybe we should move to that strategy instead. Instead of having these explicit styles here, we're actually going to create a container, screen container, and floating button component. Yes. Cool. I guess that's it. Yes, that's it for now. Thanks for following along. We've gotten kind of through gotten over the first threshold here, which is nice. We're getting progress on our app, and it's getting like more and more fun to work on this. We had a couple of sessions with some bad typing experiences and stuff. But yeah, anyways, I'm starting to ramble. Have an amazing weekend, and I'll be back on Monday at 8:30. And please write comments on the video, and I'll bring them up on the next session. And then we can start off by refactoring some stuff, if we should do that. Yeah, thank you for the feedback, Hans. It's really, really nice to get feedback on just saying, yeah, this was nice. Getting that is super, super motivational. And then it's also super awesome if you have like a concrete suggestion on a change, or expressing your experiences that differs from my experiences, because there's a million ways to do things. And even though we do not necessarily refactor into what you experience is the best way to do things, at least we can talk about it, so people get different perspectives and why how we can do different things and why we choose to do it this explicit way. Okay, now I have to go. Have a great weekend. Bye bye.